Hello, Humane marketers. Sarah Znekrocha here. Welcome to another episode of the Humane Marketing Podcast, a place to be for the generation of marketers who cares. This is the show where we talk about marketing your business in a way that feels good to you, is aligned with your values, and also resonates more with your conscious customers because it's not pushy, ethical, and also beautiful. So if you're a regular here, you know that I'm organizing the conversations around the 7 Ps of humane marketing. And if you're new here and this is your first time, welcome. I'm so excited you're here. You may want to download your one-page marketing plan with the 7 Ps of humane marketing in the form of a mandala at humane.marketing/one page, the number one and page. So again, humane.marketing/one page. And with that, with no further ado, let's dive into today's conversation. Hi, Jayne. It's wonderful to be with you again today.
Oh, Sarah, it's such an honor to be with you. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, me too, because trust, oh my God, we could talk about this for like hours and hours, right? So such an important topic. And I think specifically if you and I have known each other for a long time, and we're very much value aligned and wanting to create businesses for the long term and helping our clients create their life's work and businesses for the long term. So yeah, trust just seems this kind of, I have to admit, for me, it was kind of just this like given. It's like, yeah, obviously, that's part of the thing. But people do wonder, how do you create trust? And so that's why you and I talked, and I'm like, yeah, it'd be great if you could come in and talk to us about that, because you have spent a lot of time thinking about that deeply and came up with frameworks, and you'll share some of that with us, and I'm super excited. But let's start with kind of the foundational question, like, why do we need trust when we want to create a business? And also maybe what does that have to do with creating a sacred business like you call it, or a humane business like I call it?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because just like you said at the beginning, Sarah, I think so many of us take trust as a given. If we're a good human in the world, we're taught from a very young age to be kind and, be kind to our neighbors and, treat other people as we'd like to be treated ourselves. And most of us go out into the world with that kind of energy. And that I've used that word energy very specifically here because in a way, trust is invisible. It's not something that's tangible that you can see, that you can, have on your business dashboard and measure necessarily how you're doing. There's data that points to it for us, but really it's there's layers to trust, and what it really means for us. For me, what I've learned over the many years that I've been working with business and leaders is it's actually the foundation of everything. And it's not just the foundation of business, because more and more as I get older, like life and business are integrating together in a way. And it's so interesting, like there's many of us that will have been to business school. And we've learned leadership theories, we've learned business theories, we've learned what it takes to be successful in business today. But one of the things that I noticed in my reflections is I look back at like my time in business school. Nobody ever taught me to be kind or compassionate or the things that actually come about building trust in the world. And at the end of the day, I think somewhere along the way, we've somehow forgotten the fact that business is deeply relational. It's about humans, yes. It's also about technology today. So when I talk about relationships, it's not just about relationships between people, which of course you need really good, solid foundational relationships to make, to be successful as both a leader and in your business. But also it's about kind of the relationship with technology. your relationship with your business, your relationship with yourself. Trust comes across all these different layers, which is what we're going to be diving into. Because once we start to pull it apart, and, you know, I have a number of frameworks I've developed, it kind of, you look at the frameworks and you go, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. But somehow along the way, we've forgotten to really look at what it takes to actually create trust. And I think that's probably why we're all now doing business and leadership in a context where trust is at the lowest level it's ever been, because we've neglected it.
Yeah. So good. Yeah. It feels like we can immediately finger point at people or businesses where we don't feel that there's trust, right? But it's
Right.
much harder to figure out, well, what are the things that create trust? Because like you said, it's kind of the invisible. And
Yeah.
it's just kind of like this energy that you either feel or you don't feel. And when you don't feel it, you're like, yeah, it's because they're doing that. And in the humane marketing kind of realm, it would be the marketing that creates distrust, right? But there's so many other things besides marketing. And you mentioned this relationship to self, but also to your business and technology. Yeah. So let's maybe start with the self, because that feels like a good starting point. Because yeah, I feel like as business owners, that's where, you know, if you don't have trust in yourself, it's very hard to kind of give that to others. So
Right. That's really true. And I think, you know, working in organizational life for many years, you know, seeing leaders talking about business as though it's out here, right?
mm,
So when we think about trust, you know, very often in a business context, we think about, okay, how can we build trust, like from the business to our audience, for example? But in a lot of businesses that my audience, and I think probably yours as well, need to think about is, you know, how do we show up in our life, right, and our business? Because I think it was John Kabat-Zinn that says, wherever you go, there you are, right? So you're not going to be completely different in business than what you are in life. And really this external view of, you know, I can make my business success by doing things out here is kind of becoming an outdated notion today,
mm,
because the marketplace is demanding so much more of us. And the first thing that I want to speak to is this idea of trusted authority, which to me, I think you can't be successful in business today unless you can build both trust and authority. And authority doesn't come until you have trust in the first instance. So it begins inside. It's like, you know, just very simple questions like, do you trust yourself? And when I ask that of, say, clients or people that I meet, they'll stop and they'll think, and they'll come back with, well, there's some areas where I do, and then potentially there's some areas where maybe not so much.
mm,
And so it's then that inner work of really understanding yourself at a deeper level and understanding just very simple things. You know, this isn't new. It's like, what do you need in any situation? For example, to feel confident in a situation, what do you need? And also, what do you want? How do you want to show up to your life, to your business, to your relationships? Who do you want to be? And who do you want to become? Because what I'm really speaking to here is something I call your personal energetics, or your personal resonance. Now, what do I mean by the word resonance? I just mean the relationship, the quality of connection that you form with yourself in this inner space. Like, what is that quality of connection? Do you know yourself? Do you trust yourself? And in what situations do you trust yourself, and in what situations don't you? Now,
mm.
it's really interesting because what the research is showing, that other people know when you show up and you don't trust yourself, because we all read energy. I mean, we don't talk about this all the time, but before anybody opens their mouth, right, we have a sense of who they're being and how they're feeling. Particularly as females, women particularly read emotional energy. And so really understanding that at a different level, you know, can really kind of accelerate what it is that you want out of any relationship, whilst also enabling the other person to get that. So we're not just talking about you coming in here with a me energy. It's actually the beginning of the win-win, the me to we journey of how do I be in relationship with others? Well, I've got to learn how to trust myself and be in relationship with myself first so that I can inspire trust from others. Because if I don't trust me, nobody else is going to trust me either.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, oh, we're always so aligned in our thinking, right? The way I think about this, recently, I started to think, well, we're talking about company cultures, right? This idea of
Right.
cultures. And I'm like, well, as entrepreneurs, we need to think of it as personal cultures. What's the culture, your personal culture within your one person business? And that's exactly what you were talking about, is this
Right.
resonance. Um, how do you feel? Um, because yeah, that reflects on other people then, and that's where this resonance comes in, right? And people
Right.
see how you feel. And I love how you made that transition also from the me to the we. So yeah, clearly it's like it's not just you and your business, it's you in relationship with, clients, other people. One point you also made was this idea of the authority. And
Mm.
so that I feel like a lot of people are kind of scared already of that word. It's, it feels kind of maybe a bit heavy, maybe even a bit kind of like past paradigm, it's
Right.
like,
Right.
so tell us more about this idea of authority. For me, also what comes up, what I like more is the word courage, because you and I both work with change makers. And so I feel like having this working on themselves, this inner work, this self-confidence, um, it leads to more courage. And that's really what you need to kind of show up as, more of an authority. But I'm curious to hear from you what you think about authority and courage and all of these things.
Yeah, and I love the word courage because,
Mhm.
of course, it comes from the French, that the courage of it's the heart opening at the end
Yeah.
of the day. And interestingly, as you were speaking there, I was thinking, I don't actually use the word authority without the word trust. And why? Right?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
I think you're right. I think authority, in a way, is the old paradigm because it's got a very masculine energy
It
with it.
does, doesn't it? Yeah, we
It's
can just.
kind of got a bit of a push energy and a bit of a let me blow out my chest and show how good I am, right? Right. And so this masculine energy comes forward with the word authority. But if you put the word trust with it, trust is a very feminine kind of feeling kind of energy. And
Mm.
one of the things I learned over the years working with so many different coaches and consultants and also leaders and global leaders and C-level leaders is this idea that a lot of my work with these individuals, particularly in coaching, has really been around. And if I say these two words, people will get it straight away. Owning it.
Mm.
Whatever
Yeah.
the it is for you, it's not just learning that you have a message, but that you are a message, right? And so when I look at the word trust and authority together, it's the integration for me of the masculine and the feminine, because it's like if you only operate through a feminine energy in today's market, you're not going to get enough done. There's not going to be enough structures in place to actually attract the people. Life's going to be hard because you're going to be working as an individual, maybe you're a solopreneur, but you'll still be trading time for money because you won't have learned how to build the structures in the business that can start to take the pressure off your back, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so it's this combination of trust, or like you said, courage. Courage for me is one of the things that I talk about in different levels of consciousness. I'm kind of going off piece a little bit, but different levels of consciousness is the energy of the heart. So for your audience, if you're listening and you're not familiar with my work, right? So if you just think about the chakra system, the lower levels of energy are connected to the higher levels of energy through the heart, right? Through courage. And so authority is really built off of trust, which is the foundation of it. But the old style authority didn't really have trust in there. It was just like, let me just shout as loud as I can to everybody who'll listen about how amazing I am, and maybe some of it will stick. But in today's market, it's much quieter than that. And the reason it's built on trust is because you're not the one giving yourself authority, like in the old days. It's other people that will then say, you know, I trust you and I trust your authority in this space. And for you to be that person, you need to have done your own inner work. Now, what does that mean? When I look out into the world, and this is quite a triggering statement for some people, I feel that we have a lot of issues in our leadership. And one of those issues is there's many, many leaders that are leading from what I would term as unhealed stories. So they've had trauma maybe in their childhood, maybe in their adult life. You know, we've all had trauma, but they've not done the inner work. They've not done their own work to actually kind of heal that. So they go into work and life and business, and what they're doing is they're projecting these traumas, these unhealed stories onto other people. They're not aware of it at all. But it also causes more aggression, lack of care, lack of compassion in the workplace, because somebody's unaware. They're not conscious really of what they're doing and their impact on others. And so really this is where trust all begins, is, are you prepared to do the work to earn trust? Because we all know trust is earned. And we all know from our own experiences, trust can be lost very quickly. And then it's harder, you know, you really do have to do some work to bring it back. So really understanding not only the foundations of trust, but the different elements that build trust generically, because there's been a lot of research done in this space. Once you understand that, it's easier to be aware if you're ever breaking trust inadvertently with somebody else. You can do things that actually bring it back before it kind of falls down the abyss. But also you can trust yourself and show up as a trustworthy individual. And that's a very attractive energy in this marketplace today, just in life, because we don't meet that many people who've done their own inner work, who trust themselves, and then show up with trust because they own their message. They don't just have a message, you know, they own the message. They know their life is making a difference, not just their business. And I think embodying what matters most in today's marketplace is probably the most important advice I could give anyone.
Yeah. So much good stuff in there. I always want to like take notes for everything you share. Yeah, where can I don't want to add anything. It was just perfect. So let me just go in another direction, because I think in one of the frameworks I saw that you also talk about collaboration, and maybe you hinted at it a little bit just prior. How, oh yeah, you mentioned it because you're saying, well, trust needs to be earned. And the old paradigm was kind of like, well, I just show up as an authority, where actually, you know, the other people make you an authority. You don't even call yourself an authority, right? And so how does this all have to do with collaboration? Because it's not just me trusting myself. Yes, we saw that was a big deal, and that's where it all starts. But then how do we not use, but collaborate with other people to increase maybe that trust and maybe also the authority? What have you seen in your work?
Well, you see, as soon as you mentioned that, I went straight into power dynamics in my head. Because, you know, we've lived for so many years with positional leadership in organizational life, and even in small businesses. You know, there's the founder, the CEO, and, you know, maybe an admin assistant underneath. So what happens when you do your own inner work is you start to realize and kind of have compassion for other people. And I don't know, this is certainly true for me. The more I learn about what's on the inside here, the more I realize there's a bit of a crowd in there, but also that I'm no better really or worse than anybody else. So it's almost like a humility comes into the way I feel. And I also realize that everybody that I meet has something that they can teach me.
Yes.
So what do I mean about the power dynamics and trust? Well, what it does for me is it shifts my belief system about who I think I am and who I think I'm being, which then in a relationship with somebody else, or if I'm collaborating with, what I'm doing is I'm really partnering. I'm having the energy of not power over or power under. I'm in the power with
Right.
space. So when I'm in that space now, it's shared power, right? So it is collaborative because I'm listening as much to the person that I'm in relationship with as much as I'm like speaking from my own perspective. But we're in true dialogue. Now, whenever I say dialogue to people, everybody thinks that this is something we do every day, all the time, but it's not. And I'll just say to anybody who's listening, just go out into life, sit in Starbucks and listen to the people behind you on a table. I can guarantee they won't be in true dialogue. Why? Because it's almost like we've forgotten this power with, we've forgotten how to be with each other in some ways. And if you listen, I can more or less guarantee what you're going to hear is what I would call two parallel conversations, whereas somebody's just waiting for the other person to finish so they can say the next thing they want to say. And the other person's waiting so they can speak and say what they want to say. But there's no real collaboration, even in a communication that's happening. And again, this is why we've lost trust, you see. So this is also, there's so many different layers to trust, from power, how we're showing up, to the belief space, to do we trust ourselves? We've got our own, like, have we healed our own stories so that we can actually be in the world in conscious and intentional ways? Because that's the beginning of humane marketing. Because if we're not being human and we're acting like machines, then, or we're pushing because we feel less than on the inside, so we feel we've got to get our stuff out because people need to hear what we've got to say, that's a very different energy than, hey, yeah, I'm here and I'm ready to help, right? I'm ready to help you. And one of my mentors used to say to me, you know, like, we talk a lot, don't we, in marketing about let's get a funnel, let's get a lead magnet, let's do this, let's get it all in place, right? Content marketing. And what one of my early mentors here in the States said to me, Jayne, at the beginning of a relationship with anybody, just help them. Just help them, right? Don't keep proving that you can help them. Don't keep telling them you can help them. Just help them. And when I think about trust, right? If I think about it from my own perspective, one of the first things when I'm in a new relationship, whether it's a business, professional relationship, or whether it's just a personal one, is this idea of don't let me down, right? And this is what research shows. The first thing that comes into our head is, are you someone I can trust? Don't let me down here. Whatever it is, don't let me down. So that's the first thing you need to prove, is that you're someone who cares and that you're not going to let them down. You've got their back, right? It's simple.
I love this word humility that you used. And what comes up right now for me also when you said don't let me down is the word integrity. So kind of like
Yes,
walk your talk, follow through, do what you say said you were going to do, all of these
absolutely.
things. Like it's these small little things that people notice. Kind of like the credit system from Stephen Covey, where he's like, well, people
Yeah,
don't pay attention, but they actually accumulate credits. Like if you do good things, the other person will kind of have a credit count. And every time you do something that is like not in integrity or not trustworthy, well, you lose credits, right? And it's very, very hard to then regain these credits once you are like under zero. So yeah, just kind of like paying attention to the unspoken, to the invisible, like you
yeah,
mentioned, it's so key in trust and authority building. And I feel like what you mentioned also about collaboration and partnership is is really this new paradigm, right?
Yeah.
It's not about you building your own authority, but partnering with others on the same level that creates authority for both partners. I
Yeah.
feel like that's the way we all rise together, right? It's not like I rise
Exactly.
by abusing the people
No.
under me. It's like we all rise. And
Yeah.
I just love that way of thinking about business and marketing and building trust. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's so important. And you used a word there, Sarah, which is so important in business for me, which is the word integration.
Mm.
Because even though I've talked about, do you trust yourself? So this idea of personal trust and personal resonance, then moving that out into like what I would call then social resonance or relationship trust, like that inspires when you trust yourself, it's then how do you show up in the world that enables others to trust you? But
Mhm.
this space of integration for me, like the crucible of that, is in your business
Right.
because that's a space of being and doing because we want you to embody the message that you have. We want you to lead from this integrated space.
Right.
And we want you to bake this into your business so that, for example, all of your team, like if you have assistants or whatever, anybody who's representing your business understands how they're going to go about building trust. Because actually, we can build trust through technology too today. But we can't do that we can't do it in human ways unless those first two, the personal and the social, are in place. And if you think about this from, like the work that leaders have been through, like there's emotional intelligence, which you could argue is a good piece of self-trust. Then there's social intelligence, which you can argue is a good piece of the relationship trust. And these two things are so important in business today. Why? Because the market's changing and we're going beyond the transactions in business now. So it's not just will you do what you say you will do when you say you will do it. That's kind of the baseline now. But now people are looking for purpose. They're looking for meaning. They're looking for you. Are you a force for good in the world? As one individual human living in the world, are you a force for good in the way you're living your life, or are you part of the problem?
Right.
Right? And then that, of course, ripples out into your relationships, ripples out into your business. So, one thing that I always say is a business that doesn't resonate can never be successful. Just like a person that doesn't resonate can never be successful. And you can't resonate unless you can build trust.
Yeah, you can't build trust unless you do the inner work or you
Right,
attend the
right.
workshop with Jayne. Which was like a
Yes.
good lead-in to tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about the workshop that you're gonna share with us.
Yeah, well, I'm really
Awesome.
excited because I have a number of frameworks, and one of the things that I love is putting things. I'm very visual, so putting things into a visual framework really helps me to kind of understand. And there's a lot underneath these frameworks, and I've got, I think, 3 or 4 that I'm going to be sharing. And the first one is looking, in a way, looking at the context. It's looking at how is the market changing in terms of trust, and what are our customers like asking for? What's the invitation that they're giving us right now in terms of the way that we show up to do business, right? So that's kind of the first one. And then we're going to start looking at this integration of the self and the relationships and the business. And what does it mean to truly integrate the being and doing in business? And we're also going to look at the 5 key elements of trust, of building trust in depth, so that we can understand what they are. Because, of course, they work in the individual space, they work in the relationship space, and they also work in the business space. Because the ideal here is not just you as a human being very trustworthy as an individual and then building relationships that are trustworthy. That's a key part. but also building the trust into your business, baking it in into all of your kind of processes, your structures, your systems, even if they're run through technology, that they still got your voice. They've still got your energy baked in at the very core. So we're going to be looking at what these things mean and how to actually practically implement this in your business, because trust can feel like something that's floating around up here. But we actually want to bring that energy down so that, you know, it makes a difference in your daily reality. So that's
I
what we're going
love that so much. And I love that you making it practical, right?
to.
It's
Yeah,
like, while I love big concepts and you and I could talk about these
right.
things hours and hours, but at the end of the day, what the entrepreneurs want is like, okay, I get that, but how do I bring that down into my business, into my systems? And I love that you talk about technology as well, because there is kind of this, resistance to maybe using technology or seeing it as like this bad thing from the past paradigm. But
Right.
I'm very much about saying, no, no, no. We use the technology, but we just need to infuse it with the new paradigm recipe. It's like, yeah, we can use both. And it seems like that's exactly what you're going to be sharing with us. So
That's
I
right. Yeah.
cannot wait. It's going to be amazing. So please, people, if you listen to this and you want more of Jayne and building trust and courage and all of that good stuff, have a look at humane.marketing/workshop and join us on July 3rd because it's going to be amazing. And I think it could feel like this is just a nice to have for business. But don't get that wrong. It is a must-have for the new business paradigm. We are going to be inundated with anything AI, right? And I just talked about the positive things of AI, which I do 100% believe in. But the other side, the dark side of AI is all the generic stuff that we're going to be inundated with. And so that's why we need to work on the foundation and the trust building and all of that, so that even in the technology, people can tell this is trustworthy and this is not. So yeah, I can't wait. Jayne, anything you want to add about the workshop or anything else?
I just want to say I completely agree with what you're talking about with AI, because at the moment, I mean, I can't necessarily talk about the future so much in the long term, but at the moment right now, this is a distinct advantage, because you're absolutely right, Sarah. AI is causing us to reflect back on ourselves to what does it mean to be human and be human as a leader and human in business. So this is why your brand and humane marketing, I know the work that you do is so very important, because if we can't claim, and right now there's no shared definition of what it means to be human.
Mm.
So if we can't claim ourselves and our energy and what it means to be human, how on earth are we going to keep up with AI
Yeah.
as it's coming in? So this sounds, like it sounds fundamental in many ways, because it is. But
Mm.
it's also right now, what I want you to know is my clients that are doing this in the marketplace right now, this is a competitive advantage, because it's what the market is asking for. And the market is in some ways slower to move with the large corporations than we are when we're entrepreneurial and we can pivot on a dime. So
Right.
it's a real competitive advantage right now. And people are yearning for the humanity back in
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
So
So true.
let's just give it to them.
Yes, let's do it. Can't wait, Jayne. Really, I very much look forward to this. And thanks so much for being on the podcast. And let's just say to be continued.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks so much for watching and being part of a generation of marketers who cares for yourself, for your clients, and for the planet. We really are change makers before we are marketers. So go ahead, be the change you want to see in the world. And I hope to see you again next week. Take care.